there, ladies. I'm Erica CHAFKIN, the founder and chief empowerment officer, otherwise known as the CEO of the website datewithpower.com, where you can find powerful practical solutions to your biggest dating struggles. One thing I know a lot of women struggle with is how to feel confident when you're out in the dating world. For example, have you ever gone out with someone you really liked, but deep down inside you felt like you weren't good enough, smart enough, or pretty enough for him to want to have a relationship with you? Or you're afraid that no guy will ever love and accept you for the way you are? Well, if so, you're in the right place, because today I'm going to teach you several ways to boost your confidence so you can go out into the dating world feeling empowered and self-assured. The first way to boost your confidence is to shift the focus of your attention. Instead of worrying about whether you're good enough for him, focus more on whether he's good enough for you. Instead of obsessing over whether you have what he's looking for in a girlfriend, focus on whether he has what you're looking for in a boyfriend. In other words, does he have the traits and qualities you're seeking in a long-term partner? Remember, when you date with power, you get to be the chooser. You get to decide who's worthy of your time, energy, and attention. You are the master of your own love life, not him. By shifting your perspective in the way I just described, your feelings of self-doubt will dissipate and be replaced with a profound sense of empowerment. The second thing you can do to feel more confident is to focus on the things you can control when you're out on a date. Because let's face it, the first few dates are full of things you have no control over, such as whether he'll like you and want to keep seeing you again. After all, you can do everything right on a first date but still not get asked out on a second date. Or you can have the best body, amazing looks, and a warm, vibrant personality, but for whatever reason, he's just not interested in seeing you again. All this uncertainty is enough to shatter anyone's confidence, but it doesn't have to shatter yours. The only way to stop obsessing over the things you can't control is to shift your focus onto the one thing you can control, which is your greatness. Take note of your strengths, your unique gifts, and all the qualities that make you a great person to be with. Remind yourself that your partner should feel blessed to be going out with you since you have so much to offer. After all, you're not just any ordinary lady, you're a date with power gal. When you're focused on your greatness, you'll come across as a happy, confident woman who's comfortable in her own skin. You'll naturally show up as your best possible self when dating. And when you're being your best self, men will surely take notice. They'll be drawn to your warm, friendly nature. They'll find your positive energy incredibly appealing. They'll want to keep dating you more. Of course, there's no guarantee they'll want to see you again, but by being your best self, you greatly increase the odds that they will want to go out with you again. The third way to boost your confidence is to eliminate any negative beliefs you have about yourself, men, and dating. Now, for those of you who don't know what a limiting belief is, it's a belief that severely limits your ability to achieve success in a particular area of your life, whether it be in your career, health, or your personal relationships. A limiting belief is also known as a power-destroying belief because it robs you of your personal power and prevents you from showing up as the awesome, amazing woman you were meant to be. During this presentation, I'm going to use both terms interchangeably since they both mean the same thing. Here are some examples of the biggest power-destroying beliefs that women have when it comes to dating and relationships. I'm not good enough, pretty enough, smart enough, etc. There are no good men out there, or all the good ones are taken. Relationships are a struggle. Men can't be trusted. It's only a matter of time before I get hurt. I'll never get married. Now let me ask you, if you have one or more of these beliefs, how do you think it'll make you feel when you're out on a date? Not very good, right? You'll probably feel nervous, insecure, or just very bitter and jaded, all of which are huge turnoffs to men. You see, not only do power-destroying beliefs make you feel bad on the inside, they also affect how you show up on the outside. And if a man doesn't like the way you're showing up, he's not going to want to keep dating you. So instead of having the happy long-term relationship you desire, all you'll end up with are a bunch of unsatisfying short-term relationships that just fizzle out and go nowhere, which of course will destroy your confidence level even more. You know, there's a great quote from Henry Ford who said, "Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right." The reason I love this quote is because it reinforces the fact that your beliefs influence your reality. For example, if you believe that all men are jerks, I'd be willing to bet that most of the men you end up meeting will in fact be jerks. Or if deep down inside you believe you're not good enough, then you're likely to attract men who treat you as such. Or if you believe that all men are out to hurt you or cheat on you, then you're probably going to meet a lot of liars and cheaters out there. Do you see how your beliefs influence what happens in your love life? It's almost as if they become self-fulfilling prophecies. Now, there are two reasons why this occurs. The first is because we tend to act in accordance with our beliefs. This usually leads to results that reinforce those beliefs, making them even stronger. I'll give you a perfect example of this from my own dating experience. For nearly 25 years, I had this deeply ingrained power-destroying belief that I wasn't good enough to attract the sexy, intelligent, confident guys I was interested in. I truly believed that those types of men would never be interested in having a relationship with me, let alone marry me. Every time I went out with a guy I really liked, I always had that pesky belief running through my head. Because of it, I always felt anxious and on edge around him. I feared it was only a matter of time before he'd break up with me and find someone else. And sure enough, that's always what ended up happening. We'd go out for a few weeks or maybe even a few months if I was lucky, and then boom, he'd bid me farewell and move on to someone else. Every time this happened, my belief that I wasn't good enough got stronger, causing the whole cycle to repeat itself again and again whenever I dated. So as you could see, this belief I had definitely impacted the results I was getting in my love life. The second reason why your beliefs influence your reality is because of a phenomenon known as confirmation bias. This is when your brain actively seeks out evidence in support of your belief system. Let me ask you, have you ever tried to talk yourself out of a negative belief? In other words, did you ever try to convince yourself that the belief wasn't true? Well, if so, how did that work out for you? Were you able to eliminate the belief for good? Probably not, right? Maybe on an intellectual level you knew the belief wasn't true, but on an emotional level you still felt it to be true, at least to some extent. This is because of your brain's confirmation bias. Every time you tell yourself the belief isn't true, or you try to replace it with a more positive belief, your brain kicks in and starts giving you evidence of why your belief actually is true. That's why limiting beliefs are so hard to overcome, because our brains keep reminding us of why they're true, even if they're not true. It's like we're hardwired to keep believing and acting in the same destructive ways over and over again. For example, say you'd like to overcome your belief that all men are jerks, because let's face it, it's a pretty depressing belief to have about the male species, right? So you start telling yourself it's not true and that good quality men do in fact exist. But pretty soon your brain's confirmation bias kicks in, and that pesky little voice inside your head starts saying things like, "Oh yeah? Then what about Harry and Joe and George and David and all those other guys who broke your heart? So much for good quality men, right?" And before you know it, you're back to believing that all men are jerks. I can't tell you how many times I try to talk myself out of my belief that I wasn't good enough. I used to tell myself, "Come on, Erica, you know it's not true. You are good enough, and any man would be lucky to have you in his life." But then pretty soon, that darn confirmation bias would kick in, and I'd be reminded of all the good-looking guys who either didn't want to go out with me, or if they did want to go out with me, they didn't hang around for very long. And before I knew it, I was back to square one again, thinking I wasn't good enough to attract a nice-looking guy for a serious committed relationship. Now, hearing all this, you're probably thinking, great, does that mean that I'm stuck with my limiting beliefs forever and my love life will be perpetually screwed up? Luckily, the answer is no. Contrary to what you might think, your belief system is not carved in stone. Even if you've held your limiting beliefs for decades, it is possible to overcome them and transform them into beliefs that will empower and motivate you rather than depress you and bring you down. And in today's presentation, you're going to learn 3 techniques for busting through those limiting beliefs that are robbing you of your power and preventing you from showing up as the amazing, magnificent woman you were meant to be. Since all 3 of these techniques build upon and reinforce one another, I encourage you to try all 3 of them out and see which ones work best for you. What's great about these techniques is that they actually address the root cause of your limiting beliefs. That enables you to transform and overcome them so they won't continue to wreak havoc on your love life. You see, a lot of dating coaches out there will tell you to just repeat a bunch of positive affirmations every day in hopes that those affirmations will eventually replace your limiting beliefs. But here's the problem. You can tell yourself 20 times a day, I am beautiful, I am worthy. But if deep down inside you're like, yeah, right, then you're not going to feel beautiful and worthy. I don't care if you repeat the affirmation statement once a day or 100 times a day. If you don't believe it to be true, then it's not going to work. You might believe it to be true on an intellectual level, but unless you also believe it to be true on a deep emotional level, that affirmation's not going to make a darn bit of difference. It's kind of like holding a smiley face mask in front of your face while you're crying. Just because the mask bears a smile doesn't mean the person wearing it is actually happy. And the same holds true for affirmations. You can repeat all the positive affirmations known to mankind, but if deep down inside you still feel hopeless, depressed, or insecure, then your limiting beliefs are not going to go away. Until you deal with the negative emotions underlying those beliefs, they'll continue to plague you in your love life. That's why the 3 techniques you're going to learn about today are designed to help you heal from the hurt and pain that your limiting beliefs are causing. Because once you do that, you can finally overcome them and get your confidence back. So without further ado, let's find out how to bust those limiting beliefs once and for all. The first belief-busting technique is called reframing. Reframing is the process of looking at your past and present negative experiences from a whole new perspective. I'll explain how you can do this momentarily, but first, I want to mention that your limiting beliefs didn't just come out of nowhere. It's not like you woke up one morning and said, you know, from this day on, I'm not going to feel good about myself anymore. Instead, something had to have happened that caused your limiting beliefs to form. It might have been something that happened during your childhood or teenage years, or it could have been something more recent. Whatever it wasn't the experience itself that caused your belief, but rather the story you told yourself about what that experience meant. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Suppose there are 2 women, Tina and Susan. They both go out with the same guy but never hear from him again. Tina comes away from this experience feeling like, oh, there must be something wrong with me. I can't seem to hit it off with anyone I go out with. I guess I'm just undesirable and unlovable, and I'll probably be single forever. Now compare that to Susan, who comes away from the same experience thinking, well, if he doesn't want to go out with me again, it's his loss. It sucks because I really liked him, but if that's how it has to be, then so be it. After all, he's not the only fish in the sea, so I'll just have to move on and find someone else. As you could see, both women dated the same guy, had the same outcome, in other words, they both got dumped, but differed greatly in their perceptions of the outcome. Tina viewed it as a devastating blow to her self-esteem, whereas Susan viewed it as a disappointment, but not the end of the world. The stories they told themselves about the whole experience helped shape the beliefs they formed about themselves and their ability to find love. Tina's story left her feeling hopeless and depressed about her love life, whereas Susan's story enabled her to bounce back and resume her quest for love. As you could see from this example, it's not your negative life experiences that caused your limiting beliefs, but rather the negative stories and meanings you attach to those experiences. And so it goes without saying that if you change your story, you'll also change your beliefs. That's why the goal of the reframing process is to transform or reframe all of your negative stories and meanings into more positive ones that'll restore your confidence and make you feel better about yourself and your love life. So here's how the reframing process works. First, grab a pen and paper and write down a limiting belief that you'd like to overcome. For the purposes of this exercise, choose a belief that's robbing you of your confidence when dating. Next, think about where that belief came from. In other words, what caused it? What experience did you have that caused you to form that belief in the first place? For example, if you believe you're not good enough, think about how that belief originated. What experiences did you have in life that caused you to feel like you weren't good enough? Maybe you were excluded from the popular crowd in school, or your parents and teachers talked down to you as a kid. Or maybe it's due to something more recent, like being ignored by a good-looking guy you met at a party. Whatever it is that's causing your belief, write it down. And if you can't recall exactly how and when your belief first started, that's okay. Just write down an experience you've had that's contributing to your belief right now. Next, think about how you reacted to that experience. What negative stories did you tell yourself when the experience occurred? What negative thoughts went through your mind? What negative meanings did you attach to the outcome? Make sure to write down whatever you think of. The next step is to reframe all those negative stories and meanings in a more positive way. You can do this by looking at the situation from a whole new perspective, finding ways to learn and grow from your past mistakes, putting a positive spin on negative life events, in other words, finding the silver lining, or developing new solutions to the challenges you're facing. As you reframe your negative stories and experiences, be sure to write down whatever you come up with. After you reframe the story behind your limiting belief, you can then replace that belief with one that's more positive and empowering, something that'll inspire and motivate you in your quest for love. Write down whatever your new belief is and repeat it to yourself a few times a day so it'll get deeply ingrained into your mindset. To give you a better idea of how the reframing process works, I'm going to show you how I used it to reframe and transform my own belief that I wasn't good enough. The first thing I did was to identify the belief I wanted to overcome, which was, I'm not good enough to attract the men I'm really interested in. Next, I identified where that belief came from. I remember it all started around the age of 10 when I was brutally teased and bullied by a bunch of kids at school. Whenever they teased me, all sorts of negative thoughts went through my mind. I began to think there must be something wrong with me for them to treat me like that. I felt like I wasn't good enough to win their friendship and acceptance. Since no one seemed to like me for who I was, I figured the only way I'd have any friends was to pretend to be someone I wasn't, even if it meant acting in ways that seemed out of character for me. Fast forward into my 20s and 30s, and you'll see how those same belief patterns totally screwed up my love life. Instead of believing I wasn't good enough to make friends at school, I now believed I wasn't good enough to attract the guys I was interested in. Whenever I met someone I really liked, I was afraid to be my true, authentic self around him. I figured if I showed him who I truly was and what I was all about, he'd reject me the same way those kids at school did. And so instead of showing up as the real me, I showed up as the woman I thought he wanted me to be. I pretended to be the cool girl who went along with whatever he did and said, even if it was hurtful or made me feel uncomfortable. I completely sacrificed my own needs and feelings just to be in a relationship. And you know where it got me? Nowhere. Because as I mentioned before, most of those relationships just died out after a few weeks or months. They never materialized into anything meaningful or long-term. Do you see the parallel here? It's amazing how a belief I had formed over 20 years ago as a child still continued to haunt me as an adult. It only goes to show how powerful and long-lasting your negative beliefs can be. It wasn't until my late 30s when I learned about the reframing process that I finally was able to kick the "I'm not good enough" belief to the ground. When I started looking at my teasing experience from a whole new perspective, I was able to reframe all the disempowering stories I had told myself about why I was teased. Here's a sample of what I came up with. Many of those kids were just being jerks. Some of them probably suffered from their own insecurities, and the only way they could feel good about themselves was to bully innocent kids like myself. Perhaps their parents never taught them that it's wrong to tease others. Although I was teased a lot as a child, it doesn't mean I'm not a good person. I'm no longer going to let these bullying incidents destroy my chances of finding love. Even though I didn't have the guts back then to defend myself against their hurtful words and actions, I'm much more assertive now. Now, if someone does or says something that hurts my feelings, I know how to respond. I've suffered long enough, and now it's time to let go of those painful memories and move on. I also drew inspiration from others who had been brutally teased and bullied as kids, but managed to become confident, well-adjusted adults who eventually went on to find their soulmates. I figured if they could do it, then so can I. After going through this process, I felt so much better. The reframed version of my teasing experience was certainly much more empowering than the stories I had told myself in the past about not being good enough. For the first time in over 20 years, I was finally able to let go of that belief, and I replaced it with this new belief instead. I am worthy and deserving of a great relationship with a man I'm attracted to on all levels. I wrote that new belief down and recited it to myself every day until it became deeply ingrained in my mindset. I realized I was good enough to attract the men I was interested in. And I didn't just believe it on an intellectual level. I believed it to be true in every fiber of my being. From that point on, whenever I met someone I really liked, I no longer felt inferior and insecure around him. Instead, I felt confident and excited to be with him because I knew in my heart that I was a desirable woman who'd make a great relationship partner. And if he didn't feel the same way, it didn't mean I wasn't good enough, it just meant that he was the wrong guy. It's amazing how shifting that one belief caused me to go from feeling worthless to worthy, hopeless to hopeful, and powerless to empowered. It took me until the age of 38 to get there, but you know what they say, better late than never. Here's another example where I helped a coaching client transform her power-destroying belief that relationships are a struggle. When I asked her where this belief came from, she said it began during her teenage years, when her parents' marriage went downhill and she kept hearing them argue all the time. When she got older, she found herself going from one bad relationship to the next. It seemed like whoever she went out with, it was only a matter of time before a major problem or conflict developed. Needless to say, she felt like a complete failure at dating and relationships. In fact, she got so fed up that she was ready to quit dating once and for all and resign herself to a life of spinsterhood, as she called it. When she told me about some of her past failed relationships, it became abundantly clear why all of them had failed. She had totally ignored the red flags and warning signs that she was with the wrong men. Not only that, many of those men treated her poorly, but yet she still chose to keep dating them rather than walk away. This was like a major aha moment because it enabled her to reframe all the negative stories she had told herself about why her past relationships had failed. Instead of telling herself that men suck, relationships are a struggle, and she's going to be a spinster forever, she reframed her bad relationship experience to sound something like this. Even though I struggled tremendously in my past relationships, I now realize it was because I ignored the signs that I was with the wrong men. While they all did things to make me miserable, I contributed to my own misery by choosing to stay with them and letting them get away with treating me like dirt. It's not relationships themselves that are the problem, but rather who I chose to get into relationships with. And with that, she was able to replace her limiting belief with the following new belief. With the right person, my relationships will be happy, fulfilling, and long-lasting. Now, you've got to admit, that sounds a heck of a lot better than her original belief that relationships are a struggle and that she's destined to be a spinster forever. The reason the reframing process worked so well for her was because she was willing to look at her situation from a new perspective, learn from her past mistakes, and take responsibility for her love life by choosing men more wisely going forward. She realized she wasn't just a helpless victim of bad relationships. There were actually things she could do differently to have more satisfying relationships in the future. With this new belief, she felt much happier and eventually worked up the courage to put herself out there again. Except this time around, whenever she met someone who wasn't right for her, she quickly bid him farewell and moved on, rather than continuing to date the wrong person. It wasn't always easy, and she had a lot of ups and downs. But through it all, she never lost sight of her new belief, which helped her to keep going and not give up. Finally, about a year later, she met someone she really liked, and the two of them hit it off. To this day, they're still together, going strong, and she's happier than she's ever been. Hopefully, you can see from these two examples that once you reframe a negative life experience, it takes on a whole new meaning. And when you change the meaning, you change your belief as well. I now want to move on to the second belief-busting technique, which is to write a release and rebuild letter. This is a journaling exercise that's designed to help you let go of the fear and pain that's keeping you stuck and preventing you from having the relationship you desire. Don't worry if you're not a great writer. Proper grammar and syntax are completely irrelevant when doing this exercise. The first part of the letter is called the release. This is where you write about the negative experience that caused your belief. Consider this part of the letter to be like an emotional data dump where you pour out all your negative feelings and say whatever you want about the experience. Feel free to swear, curse, and use foul language if it'll help you be more expressive. Don't bother editing what you write either. Just get all your negative feelings out on paper. You'll probably find this to be a very cathartic experience. The second part of the letter is called rebuild. Here, the focus is on healing from the experience and rebuilding your confidence and self-worth. This is where you'll transform your old power-destroying belief into one that empowers and uplifts you. To give you an idea of what a release and rebuild letter sounds like, I'll read you the one that I wrote to help me overcome my belief that I wasn't good enough. You'll notice that the release section of my letter contains a great deal of anger and pain, but again, that's the purpose of doing this exercise, to get all my negative feelings out on paper so I could heal from the experience. Once I released all my negative feelings, I was able to transition into writing the rebuild section of my letter, which was much more positive and uplifting. So here's what I wrote. To all the kids who teased me in school, do you have any idea how much you hurt me, or how you made my childhood years a living hell? Every day I dreaded going to school thanks to you. I still have vivid memories of all the mean things you did to me. Even though it happened more than 20 years ago, I still remember it like it was yesterday. But the worst part is, all your bullying didn't just affect me then, it's still affecting me now, more than 2 decades later. Your brutal words and actions left deep scars on my heart that still haven't healed. Because of you, I've gone through my whole life thinking there must be something wrong with me. My self-esteem is at an all-time low, and I often feel like I'm not good enough, especially when I date. I know I shouldn't feel that way, but I do. I hate feeling like I'm not good enough to attract the guys I really want. I can't stand how some women always seem to get the guys they want, whereas I'm lucky if I could get them to say hello. Why does it have to be so hard? I know I'm a good person, but I feel so inferior to other women out there. I wish I could be more confident like they are. Every time I meet someone I really like, I can never truly feel relaxed because I'm afraid he won't like me for who I am. I'm afraid he'll reject me just the way you did when I was younger. Gosh, when I think back on all those times you bullied and teased me, it just makes me sick. Did it ever occur to you that while you were teasing me, you were also hurting my feelings? Probably not. All you were concerned about was having fun at my expense. You didn't give a damn about me or my feelings. But what hurts me even more is the fact that I let you get away with it. Never once did I stand up to any of your bullshit. I just took whatever abuse you dished out at me. But you know what? I'm a stronger person now. I might not have spoken up back then, but I'm sure as hell gonna do it now. You're all a bunch of despicable human beings as far as I'm concerned. And in case you didn't realize it, you hurt me, big time, more than you'll ever know. I'm tired of suffering from all the crap you put me through. I've suffered long enough, and now it's time to let bygones be bygones. From now on, I'm no longer going to give you the power to destroy me or my love life. I'm letting go of all the pain and misery that's been weighing on my heart for all these years, and I'm replacing it with confidence and self-worth, 'cause I know I'm a good person and deserve to be loved just like everyone else. I know I have a lot to offer, and I have so much love to give, and I'm willing to give that love to a man who treats me right. Not just any man, but a good man, someone who's sexy and who I could connect with on all levels. I know I'll meet him someday, and when I do, he'll love and accept me for who I am. Because I'm a good person and I have a good heart, and together we'll build an amazing relationship just like the ones I used to dream about. Except this time it'll be a reality. I know it's possible, but I just have to be patient. It'll happen when the time is right, 'cause I deserve to be happy just like everyone else. Gone are the days of feeling inferior to other ladies out there. If they can find love, then so can I. Because I am good enough, and I know I can make someone happy. And I deserve a great guy who can make me very happy. No longer will I settle for anything less. Hopefully the right guy will come along soon enough. But until that happens, I'm going to start enjoying life as a single woman. I'm no longer going to put my life on hold just because I'm not dating anyone right now. There's so much I want to see and do regardless of whether I have a man in my life, and there's no better time to start doing it than now. No more wallowing in self-pity or blaming others for my problems. The time has come for me to take charge of my life and start feeling better about myself, 'cause I'm proud of who I am and what I have to offer. And when the right guy does come along, we'll have a wonderful, lasting relationship together. I know he's out there, and I know I'll meet him somehow, somewhere. But in the meantime, I'm not going to just sit around waiting for him to show up. I'm going to start living life to the fullest, doing the things I enjoy. So here's to a fun, exciting future ahead. The best is yet to come. And that was my release and rebuild letter. Do you see how I released all the anger, hatred, and shame I had been holding on to for all those years and replaced it with feelings of empowerment, inner strength, and self-love? Once I let go of all the negative emotions and stories that were fueling my belief that I wasn't good enough, I was able to turn that belief around into something more positive like, I am good enough and deserve to be happy. You see, what kept that negative belief alive for all those years were the toxic emotions and stories I had tied to the whole teasing experience. But once I let go of those toxic feelings and stories, my belief suddenly became much weaker, and I was finally able to transform it into a new belief that made me feel strong and empowered. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that I condone what those kids did to me, because the way they treated me was completely inexcusable. What I am saying is that I finally reached a point where I told myself, you know, those kids truly made my life miserable when I was younger, but I'm not going to give them the power any longer to destroy my confidence and self-esteem. It's time to move on and put those painful memories behind me once and for all. After writing that letter, I felt extremely liberated. I felt like 25 years of anger, hatred, and shame had just been lifted from my shoulders. For the first time in ages, I actually felt good about myself and what was possible in my love life. One thing I really like about writing a release and rebuild letter is that it gives you something tangible you can easily refer to if your limiting belief ever resurfaces again. Because believe me, even if you've done the work to eliminate a negative belief, it can still rear its ugly head again in the future, especially if you get triggered by another person or situation that reminds you of your belief. In that case, you just pull out and reread your release and rebuild letter and nip that limiting belief right in the bud before it can infiltrate your mindset again. And the same holds true for the reframing process. If you ever find yourself slipping back into your old negative belief patterns, you can just refer back to the notes you took when you went through the reframing process, and you'll soon be reminded that those old beliefs are no longer true. Now, if writing letters isn't your thing, then you may want to give this next technique a try. It utilizes the same concept of release and rebuild, but it doesn't require you to write anything. It's called EFT, which stands for Emotional Freedom Technique, also known as tapping. The reason it's called Emotional Freedom Technique is because it literally frees you from the emotional distress brought on by your power-destroying beliefs. While EFT might strike you as being more unconventional than the other techniques I've mentioned, research has shown it to be extremely effective at alleviating negative beliefs, stress, and emotional pain. Before I get into the nitty-gritty details of how to use EFT to bust your own power-destroying beliefs, I want to take a few moments to explain the science behind how EFT works. EFT has its roots in Chinese medicine. It's based on the principle that we all have a network of energy channels known as meridians that run throughout our bodies. When all our meridians are open and energy can easily flow through them, that's when we experience optimal health and well-being, both physically and mentally. But when our meridians get blocked and the flow of energy is disrupted, that's when problems begin to occur. They can come in the form of physical ailments such as headaches, gastrointestinal issues, or other types of aches and pains. Or they could be emotional ailments such as depression and anxiety. And you want to know the number one cause of these energy blocks? Stress. And by stress, I'm referring to things like your fears, worries, frustrations, and of course, your power-destroying beliefs. All these things take a major toll on your emotional well-being and might also contribute to any physical ailments you have. That's why they call it the mind-body connection. The beauty of EFT is that it harnesses the power of the mind-body connection to help you break free from your power-destroying beliefs so you can feel better both emotionally and physically. So how does EFT work? It literally involves tapping on 9 different points located on your face, hands, and upper body. That's why EFT is often called tapping. I'm now going to show you where these 9 tapping points are. The first tapping point is the karate chop point, and that's located right here on the side of your hand. The reason it's called the karate chop point is because it's the same part of the hand you'd use when doing a karate chop. The second tapping point is the top of the head, and that's right here on the top of your head. The third tapping point is the eyebrow point, which is right above where your eyebrow begins, right there. The fourth tapping point is the side of the eye, and that's located right on the bone on the outside of your eye. So right there. The fifth tapping point is under the eye, and that's on the bone directly under your lower eyelid. So right there. The sixth tapping point is under the nose, and that's in the area in between your nose and your upper lip. So right here. I'll turn to the side a little so you could see the area better. The seventh tapping point is the chin point, and that's located right here in the crease below your lower lip and above your chin. Again, I'll turn to the side so you can see it better. So it's right in there. The eighth tapping point is the collarbone point, and that's in the area of your chest where your two collarbones come together. So right around here. When I tap on the collarbone point, I tend to use my palm to make sure I cover the whole area when tapping. The ninth and last tapping point is under the arm, and that's located a few inches below your armpit, right here, right around where your bra strap would be. So now I'm going to go through those 9 tapping points once again, and this time I'd like you to tap along with me, just so you become familiar with them. So we have the karate chop point, the top of the head, eyebrow, side of the eye, under the eye, under the nose, chin, collarbone, and under the arm. Let's try it together one more time. Again, tap along with me. Karate chop point, top of the head, eyebrow point, side of the eye, under the eye, under the nose, chin, collarbone, and under the arm. And those are the 9 tapping points. Now I know you're probably thinking, wow, all this tapping feels really good, but how the heck does it help me overcome my limiting beliefs? Well, what makes tapping so therapeutic is that it actually decreases the activity in a part of your brain called the amygdala. The amygdala is often referred to as your brain's fear center because it plays a major role in activating your body's fight or flight response to stress. So if you tap on those 9 areas while focusing your attention on a limiting belief that's been stressing you out, your stress response to that belief will eventually diminish, making you feel calmer and more relaxed. And when you feel calmer and more relaxed, that same belief that used to stress you out will no longer faze you, or at least not as much as it used to in the past. And when your belief no longer fazes you, it loses its oomph, its strength, and its ability to wreak havoc on your life. At that point, you can finally release the belief from your mindset and adopt a new, more empowering belief instead. So now that you understand the science behind how tapping works, I'm going to teach you the 5 steps of the tapping process so you can use it to eliminate your own limiting beliefs. Once I've gone through all 5 steps, I'll do a little demo so you can get a better sense of how the tapping process actually works. The first step is to rate your level of emotional pain, such as anxiety, sadness, anger, or frustration you're feeling right now as a result of your limiting belief. Use a scale of 0 to 10, where 0 is no emotional pain and 10 is like, oh my God, I'm freaking out, I feel like I'm ready to jump through the roof. Step 2 of the tapping process is called the setup statement. This is where you tap on the karate chop point while acknowledging and accepting the fact that you have this limiting belief. Because let's face it, the only way to overcome a limiting belief is to acknowledge and accept the fact that you have it in the first place. So here are a few examples of setup statements that pertain to dating and relationships. Even though I believe I'm not good enough, I deeply and completely accept myself. Or, even though I believe I'll never find a husband, I deeply and completely accept myself. Or, even though I believe that relationships are a struggle and things will never work out in my favor, I deeply and completely accept myself. Feel free to craft your own setup statement based on whatever your limiting beliefs are. And then once you have your setup statement, you repeat it 3 times while tapping on the karate chop point. So I'll give you an example using my own limiting belief that I'm not good enough. Even though I believe I'm not good enough, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I believe I'm not good enough, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I believe I'm not good enough, I deeply and completely accept myself. By the way, the setup statement is the only time when you tap on the karate chop point. In all the other steps of the tapping process, you'll tap on the remaining 8 points, but not the karate chop point. Why that is, I don't know. That's just how the tapping process works. So why is the setup statement important? Because all too often we try to suppress or deny the fact that our limiting beliefs exist. After all, how many times have you told yourself, stop thinking that way, you know it's not true, but yet your limiting belief stubbornly persists? That's why psychologist Carl Jung would always say, what you resist persists. In other words, you can't get rid of a limiting belief by denying it or trying to talk yourself out of it. Instead, you've got to acknowledge the belief and work through it in order to overcome it. And the setup statement provides a perfect way to acknowledge your limiting belief while also giving yourself some much needed love and acceptance. It's like a gentle, loving way of telling yourself, hey, I've got this limiting belief, and even though I wish I didn't have it, I still love and accept myself regardless. It kind of provides a nice backdrop to the rest of the tapping process. Step 3 of the tapping process is called the release phase. During the release phase, you'll tap on the remaining 8 points while talking about your limiting belief and how it makes you feel. In essence, you're giving a voice to all the negative thoughts and feelings you have about your belief. One of my mentors, Terry Hernan, who happens to be an EFT practitioner, compared this stage of the tapping process to the cleansing of a wound. As you know, when you have a wound, you've got to first disinfect it and clean out all the dirt, gunk, and bacteria that's inside. Of course, it might burn and sting a little as you clean it, but it's what you have to do if you want your wound to heal properly and completely. Similarly, during the release phase, you're cleansing and ridding yourself of all the pent-up negative emotions, thoughts, and memories that have been weighing you down and blocking you from having the relationship you desire. This is when a lot of the emotional wound healing occurs. Because remember, as you're tapping, the activity in your brain's amygdala will begin to decrease, making you feel calmer and more relaxed. At which point you can move on to step 4, which is the transformation phase. Now that you've let go of a lot of your negative emotional energy, you can transform your limiting belief into one that's more positive and empowering. During the transformation phase, you'll tap on those same 8 points while focusing on your new belief to help it penetrate deeply into your mindset. Next, you move on to step 5, which is the last step of the tapping process. Step 5 is kind of similar to step 1, except this time you're rating your level of emotional pain after you've gone through the whole tapping process. Again, you use the same 0 to 10 scale, where 0 is no emotional pain and 10 is maximum emotional pain. Hopefully your number is lower now than it was before you started tapping. But if it's still not at or near 0, don't worry. It often takes more than one tapping session to fully bust through a limiting belief, especially if it's a belief you've held for many years. I remember it took me 3 or 4 tapping sessions, plus going through the reframing process and writing a release and rebuild letter before I was able to fully bust through my belief that I wasn't good enough. What's great about tapping is that your beliefs will become progressively weaker with each tapping session you do. So the more you tap, the weaker your beliefs will get until you finally reach the point where they no longer faze you at all. That's when you know you've achieved true emotional freedom from your power-destroying beliefs. All right, so now I'm going to give you a brief demo of the tapping process so you can see it in action. I'll show you how I used it to bust my belief that I wasn't good enough. First, I rated my level of emotional pain I was in as a result of my limiting belief. Back then, it was about a 7 or an 8, so as you could see, that belief was definitely causing me a great deal of grief. Next, I came up with my setup statement, which I repeated 3 times while tapping on the karate chop point. It sounded something like this. Even though I believe I'm not good enough to attract the men I want, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I believe I'm not good enough to attract the men I want, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I believe I'm not good enough to attract the men I want, I deeply and completely accept myself. I then moved on to the release phase, where I tapped on the remaining 8 points of the tapping sequence while also talking about all the negative thoughts and feelings that came up for me as I focused on my limiting belief. It sounded something like this. God, I hate feeling this way. I wish I could be more confident around the men I really like. I hate feeling like I'm not good enough for them. I know I shouldn't feel that way, but I do. I just can't seem to help it. Every time I meet a man I really like, I can never feel relaxed around him because I'm afraid he won't like me for who I am. I'm afraid he'll reject me just like those damn kids at school did. God, I hate those kids so much. They truly made my life a living hell when I was younger. They were so mean to me. Even though it all happened more than 20 years ago, I still remember it like it was yesterday. I can still see their faces and remember all the mean things they did and said to me. Disgusting individuals they were. They were a real bunch of assholes. I'm so angry at them, but I'm also angry at myself because never once did I stand up to any of their bullying. I just took whatever abuse they dished out at me. But if anyone pulled that crap on me now, it would be a whole different ball game. I'd put them in their place so fast they wouldn't dare make fun of me again. Because I'm a stronger woman now, and I refuse to put up with anyone's crap. I'm tired of suffering from all the pain and misery that those kids put me through. No longer am I going to give those kids the power to destroy me or my love life. No longer am I going to let them stop me from meeting the man of my dreams. Because I'm a good person, and I deserve to be loved just like everyone else. So from this point on, I'm choosing to let go of all the pain and misery that those kids put me through. And I'm replacing it with confidence and self-worth. Because damn it, I am good enough. And I deserve to be loved just like everyone else. I deserve a good man, someone who's sexy too. I know he's out there, and I know I'll find him somehow, some way. I just have to keep looking. I can't give up, and I won't give up. And when he does come my way, he'll like and accept me for exactly as I am. And together we'll build an amazing relationship together, just like the ones I used to dream about. Except this time, it'll be a reality. I know it'll happen. I just have to be patient. But until he comes along, I'm choosing to be happy just the way I am. Gone are the days of feeling inferior to other women out there. Because I am confident, empowered, and worthy of love. I am confident empowered, and worthy of love. I am confident, empowered, and worthy of love. And that was my tapping session. Afterwards, I rated my level of emotional pain, and by that time it had dropped to about a 2 or a 3, so considerably better than it was before I had started tapping. And what's amazing is that after going through that tapping session, I actually did feel confident, empowered, and worthy of love. So doing all that tapping definitely had a positive effect on my confidence and my self-esteem. So there you have it, the 3 belief-busting techniques. I know I've covered a ton of information here, so I just want to quickly recap the key points and takeaways from this presentation. First, if you want to feel more confident when it comes to dating, you've got to shift the focus of your attention. Instead of worrying about whether you're good enough for him, focus on whether he's good enough for you and has all the qualities you're looking for in a life partner. Second, it's important to focus on all the things you do have control over, such as your greatness, inner strengths, and the qualities that make you a great girlfriend and life partner. Third, you've got to bust the limiting beliefs you formed about yourself, men, and dating, because those beliefs are what's robbing you of your confidence and preventing you from showing up as an amazing, empowered woman. The best way to do this is to use the 3 belief-busting techniques I mentioned earlier, which are the reframing process, writing a release and rebuild letter, and EFT tapping. I encourage you to try all 3 and see what works best for you and your beliefs. I also want to emphasize that these techniques only work if you actually use them. Just learning about them isn't enough. You actually have to try them out and experience them for yourself. You really do have to use them in order for them to be effective, because unfortunately, your power-destroying beliefs won't just vanish on their own. You have to take an active role in overcoming them. But the good news is, the more you use these techniques, the weaker your beliefs will get, and the sooner you'll be able to overcome them. Once you've replaced your power-destroying beliefs with more empowering ones, it's important to strengthen those new beliefs so they'll become your default mode of thinking and operating. Here are a few ways you can do this, the first of which is repeat, repeat, repeat. As Tony Robbins often says, repetition is the mother of skill. Once you develop your new beliefs, it's a good idea to write them down and repeat them silently or aloud to yourself several times a day. I remember when I first came up with my new beliefs, I wrote them down in a journal and read them to myself every day for about a month. Alternatively, you can write your new beliefs down on sticky notes and hang them in places where you can easily see them, like on your bathroom mirror, nightstand, or desk. You can do whatever works best for you as long as you're reminded of your new beliefs on a regular basis. That'll help them get deeply ingrained into your mindset. As you're reading and reciting your new beliefs to yourself, make sure to say them with conviction, like you really mean it. For example, if one of your new beliefs is, "There are good men out there for me and I'm confident I'll find one," then say it with conviction like this: "There are good men out there for me, and I'm confident I'll find one," instead of, "There are good men out there for me, and I'm confident I'll find one." You see the difference? You've got to say it like you really mean it. Another important thing to do is to focus not just on the beliefs themselves, but how they make you feel and how they'll improve your love life. For example, how does it feel to be worthy and deserving of a great relationship? Or to have a more positive outlook on dating? Or to have the courage to put yourself out there? Or to know that love and marriage are possible for you? By associating your new beliefs with positive emotions, the stronger those new beliefs will become. But most importantly, you've got to act in accordance with your new belief system. Failure to do this is one of the main reasons why smart, confident women still continue to struggle with dating. For example, if you believe you deserve a great guy who treats you with kindness and respect, but you keep falling for men who treat you like crap, then you're not going to have the happy long-term relationship you desire. Or if you believe in marriage and hope to get married someday, you're not going to get to the altar anytime soon if you keep dating commitment-phobic men. Do you see what I'm getting at here? Just having positive beliefs isn't enough. If you continue to act in ways that run contrary to your beliefs, you'll still continue to struggle. The only way your new beliefs can lead to positive change is if you act in accordance with them. This is a really important point, so I'll say it again. The only way your new beliefs can lead to positive change is if you act in accordance with them. If you believe you're worthy of a fantastic relationship, you've got to think it, feel it, and act that way, even if it means having to give certain guys the boot so you can find someone who's truly right for you and who will give you the love, respect, and commitment you desire. When your actions are consistently aligned with your beliefs, that's when you truly become a confident, empowered dater. Hopefully you found this presentation to be informative and worthwhile. If you haven't done so already, please head over to www.datewithpower.com/donate and pay $10 or whatever amount you can afford, since this is a paid event. While I do try to offer as much free content as possible, I occasionally have to host paid events, such as this one, to help cover the costs of running these monthly meetup events. This includes things like the cost of the Zoom video conferencing service, as well as meetup group expenses. Every dollar you contribute helps support the work I do in empowering women to succeed at dating, and so I thank you in advance for your contributions and greatly appreciate whatever support you can provide. Last but not least, I want to leave you with my contact information in case you'd like to connect with me further after this presentation is over. If you feel comfortable doing so, I'd love for you to email me at datewithpower@gmail.com and let me know how your belief-busting experience was. What techniques work best for you and which ones, if any, weren't as effective? How did your beliefs change as a result of using these techniques? What negative feelings were you able to let go of? And what did you learn from going through this belief-busting process? Rest assured that whatever you tell me will be kept completely confidential and won't be shared with anyone else. If you don't want to email me, that's okay too. But if you do want to reach out, then I look forward to hearing all about your belief-busting stories and experiences and answering any questions you might have. In the meantime, I wish you a wonderful day ahead, and whenever you date, always remember to date with power.